So I'm
Right.
gonna hit start recording. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do it. I'm do an intro. Actually, I'm gonna do a pre-intro before this. So after we do this,
Okay.
I'm gonna record an intro
Okay.
and
Talk about what we're
yeah,
gonna be
yeah, I'm talking about
Okay.
and kind of like, hey, you know,
I hear Bigger Pockets.
yeah,
That's how they do it. Yeah.
yeah,
They introduce their episode
yeah,
after they record it.
yeah. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm a pre. I'm gonna do the pre-recording. I'm gonna record that, and then I'm gonna do something like, let's get into it, and then I have an intro that I'm gonna play here that I created. So we'll get this thing going. So let's start. It's gonna count down. 3, 2, 1. Well, welcome to the Open for Discussion podcast. I am Maurice Ball, your host, and I am super excited to have my man Brian here to sit with us, to chop it up, to talk about life, to talk about ups and downs, trials and tribulations. But with that said, let's hit this intro, and then we're gonna be right back. Let's go. Yeah, mic's muted. Yeah, yeah. So, welcome to the Open for Discussion podcast, and I am truly excited to have my friend here and his lovely fiance on the backside, which you can't see. She's doing her thing on the backside, and welcome, man. So, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine, Maurice. Thank you for asking, and thank you for having me on your podcast.
Oh man,
I'm very excited, man.
Man, thank you for showing up. Thank you for showing up. Quick story: we met at an event that his lovely fiance was putting on, and we just sat there and started talking. And I was like, "Hey, man, we need to connect." And we ended up doing breakfast, and he ended up sharing a lot of insight to my son, and I was really grateful for that. Then he pulled up at our gym and got his kickboxing on, and so man, what's good? Like, how's life treating you?
Life's treating me great, man. I'm training for a marathon. Yes, a marathon.
26.2. Okay.
Yeah, and if you look up the story behind that point two, it's gonna blow your mind.
Okay.
I'm not gonna go into it because look it up.
Look it up.
Yeah, look it up.
Okay. Because I see, I see the 26.2, then I see the 13.1
for a mini.
For the mini. So,
yeah.
And I always, when I first seen it, I was like, why I see all these stickers that have this number on it. And it was like, oh, those are marathons. And then there's some stickers that have the marathon and have some other numbers by it, like 10, meaning that they done ran 10 marathons. I'm like, yeah.
I only want to do one, and that's more for the mindset.
For the mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what caused you, what prompted you or prodded you to want to run a marathon?
Honestly, Maurice, I was struggling with myself, right? Okay. So for the longest time, I started following Grant Cardone about 2.5 years ago, but he's this massive action kind of guy. So I was taking all this massive action and I wasn't really getting anywhere. And I found out it was because I didn't have the right mindset going in. So running this marathon has got me to actually be disciplined enough to wake up. I wake up at 4 a.m. most of the days, like 5 days a week. I go to the gym, I work out, I run at least 3 miles a day. So that's actually allowed me to be able to be more disciplined with myself and with what I'm doing in life.
Okay. So with that being said, the mindset that you have to take on a 26-mile run.
26.2.
20 with that. Let me add that point two again. That point two is important, and I'm gonna look that up.
It is, yes.
And figure out what that point two means. So when you initially started to think about that, what were some of the obstacles that you had for yourself as to like why you can't do it?
So throughout my entire life, I've always worked out. In high school, I worked out a lot. People thought that I was so big that I was doing steroids, and I wasn't. But they thought I was because I worked out all the time. But I would only work out my upper halves. Have you ever seen Johnny Bravo?
Yeah.
I kind of look like that. I was big up top, and then my legs were like tiny. But throughout my years, I would always work out, but I would work out maybe 4-5 months and then stop. And then I would gain weight, and then I would be very lethargic at times. I wouldn't have all the energy that I wanted. So I'd be on and off until recently I started to wanting to run a marathon. And that's kept me on track for the last 6 to 8 months. I've been working out for 6 to 8 months, and I'm not going to stop because of my goal to run this marathon in May.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when did you start your training process? When did you
for the marathon, like 4 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the rule of thumb is it takes 21 days to create a habit, and it takes 90 days to create a lifestyle change. So really, what you're shooting for
is a lifestyle.
Is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And are you going to continue not marathons, but are you going to continue running as part of your part of your workout and your conditioning?
Yeah.
Okay.
So throughout the week after my marathon, I plan to run at least 5 to 6 miles in a given week.
Okay. Okay. Now, what's the wear and tear on your body for?
So that's the main reason I don't want to continue to run marathons, right? Because the people that run marathons, they have to have hip replacements, they have to do all kinds of stuff, and it's not good for your body. Once you get past like 8 miles, that's what I've heard. It's not good for your body. So up to 8 is fine, but longer than 8, it starts to have a bad effect on your body.
I didn't know that. Yeah. I know that running, like for me, running is not one of the things that I like doing. The only time I'm gonna run is if you took something very, very valuable to me, like my wife or my child. Anything other than that I have to chase you down for, nah, you can keep that. I'll just file the insurance on that. Yeah, because I'm not running for you for anything.
Yeah.
So you are in real estate, and so tell me about how you landed in your business.
Okay. So I went to college. I went to IUS, and I was going for business, right? International business. My dream back then was to travel the world for a corporation, like a massive corporation. I'd be a head executive, and I would be traveling the world for them. So when I graduated from IUS, I actually went back to get my post-grad degree in entrepreneurship. After I got that, I landed a job at GE. And I was like, holy shit, I've made it. I'm gonna climb that corporate ladder. I'm gonna do this. So I bought a house and I bought a car, and 3 months later, GE calls me and they're like, hey, I'm like, yes. They're like, we're downsizing, and since you're one of our newest team members, we're gonna have to let you go. My heart drops, man. I'm like, but I just bought this new house, this new car. I have a little 5-year-old son that's, super excited about this house. I put some of my savings into it. So I started to freak out. I'll be honest with you, Maurice. I went home that night and I cried. I actually had tears in my eyes. Yeah.
Right.
So then I woke up the next day and I said, okay, I'm gonna figure this out because I'm not gonna lose my house or my car, and I'm not gonna, fail my son. He's so proud of me for giving him his first room for the first time in our own home. So back in college, I was a server, and I was a server for about 15 years throughout my life. And I also I rented a house out, and I got a few roommates. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to serving, and I'm gonna get some roommates. But back in college, I had college roommates. They couldn't really afford that much in rent, right?
Right.
But this go around, it wasn't college roommates, but it was actually grown adults that had jobs, good paying jobs, but they were traveling adults or divorced individuals. So I got those 3 roommates, and it's so funny. It was a 3-bedroom house, right? And the basement was completely unfinished. It was all just concrete. So my son had his own room upstairs. One of the rooms was my office, and then the master was my room. Whenever I had to do this, I told my son, hey buddy, you and dad, we're gonna go downstairs. We're gonna take all of our stuff downstairs. Your bed, my bed. and it's going to be this big basement. So you're going to have all this room to ride your bike, ride your scooter. We're going to be roommates. He got so excited, but in my mind, I was thinking, this is going backwards, right?
Right.
Because I mean, I finally landed a job at GE. I had my own house, and now I have to go back to serving, back to getting roommates. I didn't like that, but that's what I had to do, so I did it. He was so excited. But anyway, like I was telling you, after I had these grown men roommates, 3 months go by, and I'm like doing the math in my head. I'm thinking, no way. All my bills are getting paid. The mortgage, which was escrow, which means taxes and insurance are included. The internet, the electric, all that's getting paid, and I'm making an extra $150 a month in profit. That's what I called it back then, was profit. In college, I wasn't making any profit. I was actually having to come up with maybe $25, $50 so a light bulb didn't go off.
Right.
But this go around, I was like 150, so a light bulb went off. And I started doing math in my head. What if I can find a house with more bedrooms that didn't cost as much as my house did? So for the next 3 weeks, I did some research, and I found this 4-bedroom house in New Albany. And I was like, okay. I called my lender. I said, no, at first I called the realtor. I toured the home, and I was like, this is perfect. So I called my lender. I said, lender, can I get this house? And he said, well, since you lost your job at GE and you currently don't make enough at your serving job,
Right.
You're going to have to put everything that's in your savings account as a down payment, and your mom's going to have to co-sign.
Ooh, that co-signing gets you every time.
Absolutely. So I said, done. Done.
Okay.
I called my realtor and I told her, hey, tell their sellers that, I'm gonna offer this much, which was asking price, and I'm gonna put a $2,000 earnest money down. They were only asking for $1,000. So she said, why would you do that? And I said, because back then $2,000 was a lot. I said, because if I don't put that much, I'm going to talk myself out of this.
Right.
I'm all in. This has to work.
Right.
So the sellers accepted the offer, and I gave the earnest money. As soon as I gave the earnest money, I started freaking out. I was thinking, oh shit, I've never advertised for tenants. I've always advertised for roommates.
Right.
I don't know how to advertise for tenants. I've never not lived in a home where I'm going to be renting out to rooms, right? So this was a whole new concept for me. So up until closing, I couldn't sleep at night, Maurice. Like, I was freaking myself out. Worst case scenario, what if I can find anyone that wants to rent rooms in a house with strangers, right?
Right. Right.
So the day of closing, the sellers give me the keys, and I meet my first tenant at that house, and I give him the keys, and his name's Tyler. And for security purposes, I'm not going to say his last name.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
His name's Tyler, and 3 weeks later, the whole house was full. And I was making what I thought I was going to be making, $600 on average per month.
Man, that is so awesome. Now, when you went to your mom's and said, "Hey, Mom, I got this idea, but I'm gonna need you to co-sign." What was her response?
Yes, baby, whatever you want. Bro, if you knew Hispanic women, they are all in for their kids.
All in.
All in.
Without a bat of an eye.
Exactly, yes.
She's like, let's
yes,
go, let's
baby,
do it.
You're so smart. I put you through college. You know everything. Here's my money. Take my social security. I don't know if this is legal or not, but I've opened up credit cards under my mom's name. I mean, I pay them off, but
yeah.
But she gives me permission.
But you establishing credit,
exactly,
which is something that a lot of people don't know. That this is a side note for those who are watching. Mm-hmm. He is in the business. If you have a child and you want to establish credit, just have them as an authorized user on your card. But what you did was build your mom's credit up because you're paying.
Well, she already had excellent credit. So.
But I'm saying like now it's like it's still what you added. If it was already good, and now you have these other things on there, now she's just A1 credit, which is great. Now, when you were thinking about you're sitting there across the table, and the anxiety started to hit. How was you dealing with the anxiety of
across the table from Who?
From
Sellers?
when you
Like
were
the closing
yeah,
table?
at the closing table. Yeah.
Gotcha. So since I already had that one tenant lined up,
Okay.
my mind was somewhat at ease. If I
Okay.
wouldn't have had him lined up,
Okay.
I'd still be freaking out. And to be honest, I probably wouldn't have done it. I probably would have just lost my $2,000 and said, I can't find anyone. This is not going to work. But I feel like since I did find him, I was like thinking, okay, this is going to work.
Okay.
Like, there's no going back from this.
Okay. I mean, I can only imagine the mindset of sitting there if there was nobody on tap.
Mm-hmm.
But to have somebody on tap, it says, okay, if I found one, I can find two.
Find other ones, yeah.
And if I find two, I can find three. Yeah, so I dig that mindset. So in this process, what was your major trial in this whole thing? What happened in your life that kind of put things in perspective for you?
So like I was still serving back then, right? Even after I got that house, I was serving full time. I wasn't thinking that I was going to go into real estate full time. I thought I would just buy a couple of houses and have that as a side gig, right? And I've heard people say just buy a house and rent it out and have the tenants paid off because in 30 years you're going to own it. So back then that's what I was thinking. I'm going to go ahead and buy, a couple of these houses, rent out the rooms because in my mind, I thought if I have multiple tenants under one roof, that's more risk safe. It's less risky. Because if it's only one family and they move out, that house sits vacant for that long a time. And then you don't really know what that family's doing to the home. But having multiple tenants, I was actually able to enter the home and see what they were doing because only the rooms are private. But back then I didn't even have a lease, so yeah. Yeah, but like I was saying, so I went back to serving, and I thought in my mind back then I was like thinking, okay, I'm gonna land another corporate job. I just serve, and I'll do this rooming thing on the side until I find another corporate job that's actually a career. But this house took a turn because all of the tenants were starting to have problems. So I wasn't able to focus on finding another career job. I was only able to put my focus into my serving job. And then when I wasn't serving, I was dealing with this house. And the tenants were starting to have so many problems. So one day I called time out and I said, okay, let's have a house meeting and let's all sit down and see what's wrong with the house. So a week later, we all sit down at the table and one by one, I go and I ask him, okay, what's wrong with you? And he said, well, I always buy toilet paper. And always buying toilet paper, and every time I come home, there's never any toilet paper. I said, okay, so what if we buy the toilet paper? We went to Sam's Club and bought the big old boxes, He was like, I was like, well, that's solve your issue. He was like, yeah, it would. I was like, okay, one down. Next one, what's your problem? Well, I clean and clean and clean, but no one else cleans, and I'm always doing the cleaning. I said, okay, what if I hire a cleaning crew? The first cleaning crew was me and my mom, right? My mom and I, we went to these houses once a week and cleaned them. So I said, what if I hired a cleaning crew and they come in here and detail clean once a week, but you guys still have to pick up after yourselves. Like you have to wash your own dishes, you have to clean up after yourselves. But our cleaning crew will come in here once a week and do detail cleaning. He was like, yeah, that'll work. I said, okay, 2 down. Next, what's your issue? He was this Indian guy, right? He's like, I'm Indian. And in India, we like it really hot. So every time I set the thermostat at 76 or 77, the other roommates complain and they turn it back down to 70. I'm like, yeah, okay. I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Home Depot and I'm going to buy one of those Nest Learning thermostats. I'm going to set the range from 68 to 72. That's it. That's all you guys can do. And then I'm going to allow you to have a space heater in your room because back then I had a rule that no space heaters. But this guy said I'm allowing you to have a space heater in your room. I was like, okay, that works. The fourth guy, he's like, well, I really don't have a problem per se. I just never know when you're going to wake up and you're going to say, this is it. I'm tired of doing this. You guys have to go because I love living here. To be honest, this is great. I was lonely back in my old place, and now I get to be, I have a community here. I have friendship with these guys.
Right.
He said, so I don't know when you're going to wake up and just say that we all have to go and you're going to get tired of doing this. And I was thinking, ooh, I'll get back to you on that. So for the next 3 weeks, I went to my basement and I was researching LLCs, operating agreements, leases, how to build a website. I don't know if I should say this or not, but I went 3 days without showering.
Oh, it happens. We guys, this is what we do.
But I was in the basement working.
hey, 3 days? Oh, okay. I've done that before.
I think it was going on 4.
You know, give or take.
Yeah, give or take.
Put on clean socks, clean underwear, keep it moving.
Yeah. So, and then I called that tenant back and I said, "Hey, listen, per our conversation the other day, I'm going to go ahead and start a business. I'm going to call it Renters First, right? And this house, that's its sole purpose. It's going to be to rent out the rooms." I said I came up with a lease. It's a 3-month minimum, and then it goes month to month. And he said, you did all that? I said, yeah, that's how committed I am to you guys. So then another light bulb went off, and I started doing the math. I was a big math guy back then. I'm still a math guy. And I started running. Oh, yeah, for sure. And I started running numbers. If I can get to 100 bedrooms, I'll be living the life. I wasn't taking into account capital expenditures, inflation.
Right.
I was taking into account me doing all the work, all the property management. I was going to be doing all the remodeling with my dad. I was going to be doing all the cleaning with my mom. I didn't expect that to change, but I did the numbers and I thought to myself, if I get to 100 rooms, I've made it. I'm going to be a millionaire.
Right.
I was wrong. Now it's more like 300.
Right.
But nonetheless, you know.
Right.
Yeah, so long story short, we're up to 62 rooms right now.
62 rooms.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
And we're looking to double in size in the next 12 months or so.
Let's get people to look at. So here's the website, Hobnob.
Yeah.
And you can find them at
www.stayhobnob.com.
Stayhobnob.com. If you're interested in that. And so I love the story. I love the business aspect of it. But the way that it sounds is like it just all lined up, you know. And I know, but I want the people to know that it just wasn't, I just bought the puzzle and turned the pieces of the puzzle together, and they all just interlocked all of a sudden. And hey, I went from here to here. So
it's more like I bought 5 puzzles, mixed them all together, and I was trying to get through one of them.
Now in that, what was one of the most life-changing experiences that you've had?
Not to do the work myself. Because back then I thought if I did it, it was going to cost less and I would do it right. And I was way wrong, man. Way wrong. It takes a team.
Oh, for sure.
It really does. Not one successful person out there ever did it alone. They always had a team.
Right.
Whether it was their secretary, their mom, their dad, their kids, their staff, they never did it alone. So that's one thing I've learned. Because whenever the first 3-4 years that I started doing this full time, I was still doing it myself. Like I said, my mom and I were doing the cleaning. My dad and I were doing all the remodeling and the maintenance. I was doing all the property management myself. So I was literally working 18-hour days, 6 to 7 days a week. I was killing myself.
Sure.
My body was stressed.
For sure.
And then finally, when I figured out I need to start delegating. I need to be a leader and I need to get people to work for me, with me, not for me, with me. I started to actually grow a lot faster.
Understandable. That is having a team is one of the main things I think that a lot of people fail at. And when I started some of the stuff that I started, I was a one-man show.
Yeah.
And because nobody can do it like I can do it. And it's gonna be done right if I do it. But really, what that's saying is that's control issues.
Yep.
You know, you don't trust anybody else to be able to put things out there. And what I've learned is you have to give people an opportunity to fail.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you give them something, that way they can grow.
Yeah.
Don't go and snatch it from them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's a great life lesson that you learn. So, in your journey, becoming a this amazing CEO and entrepreneur, what in your life caused you to have a different perspective, life-wise, outside of business?
Having brain cancer.
Let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that. I think you know, the where you are now is just an testament to where you came from.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the brain cancer.
So July of 2021, I took a trip with my mom, my dad, and my son. We went to the beach, Myrtle Beach, and I started listening to the 10X rule, and that's Grant Cardone. And the 10X rule, it's more about taking more action. Don't decrease your goals, but take more action, right? So I started following Grant Cardone, and I got pretty heavy into it. Not 3-4 months later, I started having symptoms. It would feel, have you ever watched a movie where like the middle part zooms in and then the outer part, the circle outer part zooms out?
Yeah.
I would feel like that for about 15 seconds, and then I wouldn't be able to talk. I would be paralyzed for like 10 seconds. Like I wouldn't even be able to think of the word that I'm trying to think of. The first time it happened, it was so scary. I was washing dishes and my son was on the couch. And as I was washing dishes, I got that feeling, right? The picture feeling for like 15 seconds. So during that time, I can still move. So I went to the couch and I sat down, and then I was paralyzed for like 10 seconds. And I'm glad that my son was on his iPad, because he didn't really he didn't realize what was happening to me. So and then I was like, that was weird. That's never happened to me. And then I just wrote it off, right? And like not even 2 weeks later, it happened again. So I looked up the symptoms. I Googled it. Don't do that. Don't Google your symptoms.
Yes.
So Google says best case scenario, panic attack or anxiety attacks, which back then that's what I thought I had. Worst case scenario, brain tumor. And I thought to myself, there's no way it's a brain tumor. I don't smoke. I don't drink very often. I work out sometimes. I eat somewhat healthy, but there's just no way it's a brain tumor, right? So another 2 to 3 weeks go by, and these episodes, which I thought were panic attacks or anxiety attacks because of Grant Cardone, I was taking so much action. Like I was taking a lot of action, but not like I was whenever I first got started with Hobnob, doing all the work, killing my body, but with my mind. I was taking a lot of action with my mind.
That's just as works when you don't have the time to, your body is going to respond, but your mind, if your mind is constantly racing, so you probably could assume that it was like exhaustion, overexhaustion mentally.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the day I went to the hospital, I found out they started happening every 30 minutes. So I was like, I had an appointment with my doctor a week after that. But then they started happening every 30 minutes, and I thought, I just need to go to the ER. This isn't normal. These are not panic attacks. Or if they are, they're severe, so I need to get them under control. So I remember that morning, I already know I was going to go to the hospital. I remember taking my son to school, and usually, like, I go through the rider line, right? But this time I actually parked, and I got out with him, and he thought that was weird. And I walked him up to the door, and I got down on my knees, and I gave him this big old hug, like a 10-second hug. And he was like, he hugged me back, but he was like, what's going on?
Right.
And then I looked at him and I said, hey buddy, listen, there's going to be a time where I'm not going to be here, right? Now I want you to remember everything I've taught you up until today and make it work throughout your entire life. And always remember that I'm going to be here for you. Maybe not physically, but I'm always going to be here. And he started freaking out. I'm like, I'm not going. He's like, what's happening, Daddy? I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. But there's going to be a time that I'm not going to be physically here. There's always going to be a time where a parent is not going to be physically there for their kid.
Yeah.
So I calmed him down, but I drove myself to or I was with my fiance, so we went to the hospital, and they did an MRI. Right. No, whenever I was checking in, I was explaining to the lady at the desk what my symptoms were, and she said it kind of sounds like a seizure, but not. She was kind of confused. So I was sitting down in the waiting room before I had the MRI, and then, like I said, it would be 15 seconds, and I would feel it coming. And I was doing work on my laptop, so I put my laptop up. I went up to her, and I said, "It's happening now." So I sat down on the chair, and it started happening. And she was watching me closely. And then when I came back to it, like, whenever it happens and I come back to it, I feel great. I could go work out. But when I came back to it, she said, it's kind of like a seizure, but when you're having a seizure, you're not aware of what's going on. You were actually aware of what was happening. Where I was like, yes, I was fully aware. I just couldn't talk. So we did the MRI. While I was in the waiting room for the MRI, for the results, the chaplain comes up to me and she says, I'm doing work on my laptop. I'm always working, right? She comes up to me and she says, hey, if there's anything you want to talk about, I'm here. I was like, I'm the chaplain. If there's anything you want to talk about, I'm here. I'm like,
so, in your mind, like, the chaplain shows up, normally symbolizes that this could be the end run. Like, you're not walking out of here.
Yeah, but I wasn't thinking that. In my mind, I was like, why would you come up to me? Like,
yeah.
I'm busy. That's exactly what I thought in my mind. I was like, I'm busy working. I don't want to talk to you. I'm busy. But 2 minutes later, 2 or 3 minutes later, my actual nurse comes up to me and she's like, you don't know why you're here, do you? I said, no. She's like, we found a brain tumor. Maurice, I'm not kidding when I tell you this. I kind of went into shock for like 10 to 15 seconds. I couldn't talk, I couldn't move. And it wasn't a symptom, that I wasn't like one of those, attacks that I was having, but I couldn't move, I couldn't talk. And then when I finally came back to it, I started bawling my eyes out. And she was so sweet. I remember her, she held my hand and she said, I'm going to be here the entire time. Once you calm down, call your loved ones, let them know the news. I said, okay. So I did. My dad, my mom, they all took it really, really hard. My son, he was at that age where he knew something bad was happening, but he didn't realize how severe it could have been. So they found a brain tumor, and my surgeon, he's awesome. Apparently he wasn't a new surgeon, but he was new to the U of L hospital. Okay. He was newish. I don't know if I was his first surgery there or his third, but I was one of his first 3. So because we did a lot of research on him, right? I was like, who's going to be operating on my brain?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yes. You want to know. You want to know the. Yes. I mean, like, my heart when you said you had that conversation with your son, that hit my heart, because my dad used to tell me all the time, like, son, I ain't gonna always be here. And I would be just bawling and just all kind of stuff, because I think in a moment as a kid, you don't know that's it could be right now in this moment, or sometime in the future. But to kids, it's always now. It's always in the moment. Now there's never there's no future broadcasting in that news. And so I'm pretty sure your heart was heavy. I'm pretty sure like, your son is sitting there trying to figure out and put the pieces together in his mind as to my dad is about to be gone. In your mind, I can imagine what that, like, even now getting me teary eyed. You know what I'm saying? Just because because I have a son. Yeah. And have to share that information at such a young age. Yeah. But what I could commend you on is the fact that you was in preparation mode. That you was preparing. You, even though he didn't have the understanding of what it is that you were saying, the preparation of it goes far beyond anything. Like, I can respect that, and I'm like, that's solid coming from a father to be able to prepare his son for whatever is about to take place. And I commend you on that, bro. that's big because now how did the story play out?
He was only 8 years old at this time.
Wow.
Yeah.
So an 8-year-old had to process the fact of, hey, Dad just hugged me in a crazy way. He normally just pushed me out the car when I get up here, you know. And he got out and at 8 years old.
He walked me up to the door and hugged me and got on his knees and told me that one day he's not going to be here.
His day was probably all messed up.
That was. And honestly, that's all I kept thinking about was I just messed up my son's day before I found out the news, right? And once I found out the news, I couldn't stop thinking of everything. But
yeah, you know, and you know, and I'm pretty sure the teacher probably came in, his countenance was probably different. Teacher, and I'm just playing this out as to how I would have responded if I was, and hey, so what's wrong? Oh, my dad just hugged me and told me that he ain't gonna always be here.
Mm-hmm.
Now that speaks volumes because the teacher's probably saying, wow, that's
what's going on?
Like, you know, and so, man, like at 8 years old, to be able to carry that weight is amazing for that young man, and I think that whatever God has in store for him to be able to table that at such a young age, he's going to be able to persevere over anything that he's going to face coming up in the future. So, what's the rest of that?
So like I was telling you, the surgeon, I was one of his first 3 operations in the hospital. He did an amazing job. Like, I have a scar from here, from the top of my head all the way to the side. And usually with when scars aren't done the right way or surgeries aren't done the right way, hair doesn't grow on your scar. But I have hair and everything. So during that time, I was diagnosed on October 30th or something, like October 29th, and I had surgery on November 2nd. And that was the first Halloween that I didn't get to spend with my son because I was in the hospital. But my family was there for me. My fiance, my mom, my dad, my son, my aunt, they were all there for me 100% of the time. And I'm really glad that I had a great support system for my family. But honestly, I was so I told you about Grant Cardone, right? He has a saying, don't be a little bitch.
Right.
So when I thought I was having panic attacks or anxiety attacks, I was like, oh no.
Suck it up.
I'm being a little bitch. But when I found out it was a brain tumor, like after all that set in, I actually got happy. I was like, I'm not a little bitch.
Right.
It was just a brain tumor.
Just a brain tumor. Right.
I actually snuck out of my room before surgery and I recorded a video and I sent it to Grant Cardone saying, hey Grant, this is Brian. We've met sometimes, but you might not remember me, but I thought I was being a little bitch, but I just found out it was only a brain tumor. I'll be back. And because of the mindset that you have instilled in me this far in my support system and the great hospital staff, I'm going to get through this. I knew in my heart and in God, right? So God and I's relationship has been on and off.
Okay.
For up until that moment.
Right.
And once I got out of surgery, our relationship has gotten a lot closer. But that's we'll go into that in a little bit. But so I sent him that video and his staff played it in the morning. He has a staff of like 50, so they played it that morning, and the lady said, we're changing lives all throughout the world, but it was just a funny video, and if you want, I can give you a link, and people that are watching, they can go to that link and watch the video, so that was funny, but anyways, so after surgery, well anyway, let's talk about the tumor, right? So the type of tumor that I had, don't even ask me the name, because it's a big name, but it starts off as a circle, and then depending on the level of cancerous, it grows tentacles. Once it grows those tentacles, that's when most people have symptoms. But once they have symptoms and the tentacles grow, you only have a 1% chance of survival.
So your chances of survival
because it was still a circle and it was in a part of my brain where it caused me to have symptoms is why we found it. Because I asked my surgeon, what if I would have came in a month and a half, 2 months later? My tumor was level 4 out of 4 aggressive with cancer, which meant it grew fast.
Right.
So I asked him, what if I would have came in a month and a half, 2 months later? He's like, you wouldn't be here.
Wow.
So that when he said that, I knew that God had a higher purpose for me. Because back in my college days, man, I had a motorcycle, right? So I went off this far from the ground going 170. That was a close call. I almost wrecked my aunt's car. That was a close call into a tree. So I've had a lot of near-death experiences. I had a brand new Camaro, and I was going down 2nd Street Bridge, like speeding super fast, and I lost control. That was a close call. I mean, I've had a lot of close calls, but this time I thought to myself, God for sure has a bigger purpose for me. He does.
He has a way of trying to get you. He has a way of getting your attention when you don't want to pay attention. And so in your process of saying, okay, God, what did your perspective of God, how did your perspective of God and his purpose for your life and the things that he has called you to do, how did that change?
So when my surgeon told me the news, I thought God has a bigger purpose for me. And usually before my tumor, I would only talk to God when I needed something, when I was doing bad. Like, God, please help me.
Right.
But after that, I talk to him every day, man. Even when things are going great, I'm like, thank you, God, for letting, this world is beautiful. The sun came up. I'm alive. My family's healthy. And even when times are going bad, I still ask him for help.
The gratitude and the gratefulness of being able to thank God when things are good and being able to thank God when things are bad. But to also be able to just thank him for life.
And just talk to him.
Yes, I mean, that's a daily routine. That's something that I do daily. And I don't want to have to wait till something tragic happens to realize that he's real. But when something tragic happens and I make it out of it, it shows me that he's real. And so, man, your story is amazing. Like your insight to God when you're that close to what we consider death. Because you're younger, you're Superman.
Invincible.
Invincible. Can't nothing take me out. I could leap tall buildings in a single bound. I could be the Shaolin master and catch bullets with my teeth and stuff like that. You don't ever think anything could take you out. I'm built for it, tough. So those moments where God says, let me show you how fragile
you really are.
You really are, and how fragile life is. It gives you a different perspective. So out of that, what was the process out of the brain tumor?
So I had surgery November 2nd, and whenever I first woke up...
And this is November 2nd, 2021, so this is only a little over 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So I had surgery, and whenever I first woke up from surgery, so before I had surgery, I did this MRI that they put contrast and they have you move your fingers, move your tongue, move your toes, and they're able to tell you what the possible side effects are going to be after surgery.
Okay.
So one of the possible side effects was I was going to be paralyzed from my right side. And then another possible side effect was that I was going to lose my speech. But he said the speech thing I'm not really worried about because your brain, it's kind of like taking 65 somewhere. It's the fastest route, but there's other ways around it. So your brain's going to learn those ways. It might not be as fast, but it's going to for sure learn how to get there. He said, now the right side of your body, that's a give or take. If you regain movement or not. So I was more scared about my right side of my body being paralyzed, but whenever I first woke up from surgery, as he said, I couldn't talk at all. I couldn't talk, I couldn't write, I couldn't type. I couldn't do any of that. I could think the same. I just couldn't get the words out. And the right side of my body was just a little bit weak. And I had movement, and that was just a little bit weak. So I was more happy because I wasn't paralyzed on my right side.
For sure.
The talking, I told my family, I said, if you notice there's a shortage or some kind of deficiency from what I am right now, just tell me. Be hard on me. Don't be easy on me. Be hard on me. Tell me, hey, you're stuttering. Hey, you're not as clever. Hey, be hard on me. It took me about 4 or 5 months to start talking again, saying sentences. And then took me about 1.5 years to get to 96% back to normal.
So that was like last year. Yeah, like, wow.
Right now, Maurice, I'm like 98.5% back to normal. If you knew me before, you would be able to tell, okay, yes, sometimes you stutter. But if you didn't know me before, you'd be like, well, you had a brain tumor. You're still
That's how I was. Yeah. Like, you had a brain tumor, you sit up here chilling and, doing kickboxing and running marathons and any other extreme things that you're doing. So I know that your fiance is here, but I'm gonna ask you, how was she taking it?
What do you mean, like right now?
No, during the whole process, like, because if she's in the boat with you,
yes.
right? So there has to be some emotion and some stuff that was coming from her that
she's very strong. She's very strong.
I see it in her eyes.
Yes, and she doesn't show that much emotion.
Okay.
Yeah, she doesn't. And she might hate me for saying this, but she hates to cry. She hates when people see her cry.
I get it.
So she doesn't like to be seen as weak.
I get that.
She shows love emotion a lot. She shows happiness, but she doesn't show sadness or negativity as much as she probably feels. And she doesn't really voice it. So she was strong. She was very strong during this time.
I have to get her on here and we have to talk about that. We have to at a later date, because she's an amazing event planner and everything. So I wish I had a flyer that I could put up for her business as well. That she does.
She's not only an amazing event planner; she's an amazing social media marketer, and that's why she's here right now.
So
content.
So what y'all don't see is she working her magic on the backside of this thing. She got it going on the backside, and I just appreciate when they came to the gym. She actually came in and filmed some things at the gym. It was just really great. She's really creative. I love her spirit, and she's very, very, very talented. So I'll get some of her information. We'll pop that up there as well. But so that's an amazing story. So you really just got back to being as complete as you could possibly be.
I'm only at 98.5. Even when I get to 100, I'm not going to stop there, Maurice.
No, I'm just saying, but 98.5.
That's close enough.
yeah. It's better than 40.
Yes, way better than 40.
Way better than 40.
I was very frustrated whenever I was at 40, 50, 60, 70 because I couldn't type, I couldn't write, I couldn't communicate with the world what I was thinking. I couldn't talk. And if you knew me before, I was a clever man. Like I was, like I am right now.
You're still clever.
Yes, thank you.
Right.
But I was before my tumor, I was more like I am right now. But during this time where I was 40, 50, 60, I couldn't be like this. I couldn't express myself. And I'm a very expressing person, right? I express myself. I'm a very emotional person.
So do you think that in this process that it humbled you and that you maybe was carrying some arrogance about yourself?
For sure. 100%, man.
100%. So now it's no longer the arrogance of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the humility of it.
Yeah.
It'll do that to you.
No.
This thing called life be lifing. When it start lifing on you, You ain't got no choice but to.
Yeah,
But at least you learned that. At least you didn't go back into the space of it being, you know, you being in that space. Like the humility, the arrogant side of it would could be very pushy, and like people don't want to do business with you because you carry arrogance. But the humility side, people to want to sit down and want to get to know you, want to talk to you, and things like that.
Back then, I was very me, right? I know everything, me. Now it's like, no, it's not about me. Like, what about you? How can I help you? Genuinely, like I'm genuinely interested in helping people. Like, how can I help you guys? Like, just reach out to me.
And that is amazing because when we sat down and talked, one of the things that he did that I, as a father, appreciate, and normally I'm on the other side of the table, is he sat down and spent time with my son Isaiah. We probably was there about an hour and a half, and gave him a different perspective, poured into him. And as a father who does that for other fathers, and who does, it's always awesome to be able to have somebody to sit down and give them a different perspective, because as fathers they see us as father, and they see us, the stuff that we tell them could start to get convoluted with all the other stuff that we tell them, like, hey, go clean your room. Hey, here's a gym that you might need for life, in life. But to him, it just sounds like, hey,
go clean your room.
Go clean your room. Yeah. So
never thought of it that way.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that I do as a I have a lot of people that I give access to my son. I don't give everybody access to him. He's 18 now, and so now
you did an amazing job.
Well, I it's two of us. My wife up there, she's a contributor, and let him tell it. It was it's him. Yeah. Like neither one of us did anything. You let him tell it. So I appreciate you from that standpoint. I want to make a shift here.
Isn't that how we were when we were 18 though? Like,
we were 100%.
We were 100.
100%.
Invincible. Like,
100%. But I did respect my dad though, because I just had that dad that was a no nonsense kind of dude. So it was like, oh, if he say the sky is green, the sky is green. I'm not questioning him. I'm not arguing him or anything. The sky is green. So let's shift here, and I just want to ask you a couple of questions. What would you tell your 20-year-old self?
Stop being a womanizer. Stop partying so much.
Okay.
You're not going to have the body that you have for long. I told my son that all the time. I'm like, listen, Xavier, he's big into baseball. I said, listen, you're going to have the rest of your life to chase women around, to do all that stuff. Back when you get older, you guys are probably going to be living up to 100. The average age expectancy is probably going to go up to 100. So you're going to have 100 years to do all you want to do.
Right.
But you're only going to have 5, maybe 10 years to focus on your baseball, if that. If you don't get really good at baseball in these 5 to 10 years, that's it. You're not going to. He wants to go to the major leagues. So I would tell my 20-year-old self, buckle down, man. You're going to have all your life to be able to explore, experience everything. Buckle down right now. That way when you're 30, 35, my age, you're set.
He's still a baby. He's still a baby. 35, I'm 50. I'll be 51 this year.
You don't look like it?
It's the prune juice. It keep the skin tight, So okay, that's really good. That's really good. You tell your 20-year-old self to buckle down. I think I would
be disciplined. Read a lot. You don't
read a lot.
You don't know it all.
Definitely.
Dude, the most successful people in the world claim, we don't know if it's true or not, but they claim to read 1 book a week.
Yes.
1 book a week. 52 books a year. The average person doesn't even read 1 book a year.
And there was a period there was a period where I was probably reading 2 or 3 books a month. And I was just devouring books. And
what kind of books though? It can't be fiction.
No, I was reading. I was reading spiritual books. I was reading self help books. I was
Yes.
reading leadership
Yeah,
leadership
yeah,
books.
yeah,
Like I have a bookshelf over there. If you look over there, it's a lot of leadership
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
It was just stuff that I needed
Mm-hmm.
that I needed in that season, and that stuff really helped me.
Yeah.
Like being able to read. And now I'm a confess I'm not reading like that now.
Yeah.
But I just got me an Audible account, so I was like, yeah, because my life reading right now doesn't fit into the way my life is structured.
Gotcha.
Like to sit down and read
Yeah,
something.
read it.
But
But even Audible, man, even Audible.
the Audible
works.
I think that's one of the great.
I think I've heard
inventions.
the equivalent to reading, listening to a book. You have to listen to it like two to three times.
Yeah,
it's the equivalent to reading it.
which is good because you can just get it in your spirit by listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think also having the book, because I have a book that I frequently listen to, and I also have the book so I can go back to like a spark in a chapter and kind of just highlight some stuff and pull out the meat from that.
Yeah.
So okay, so you tell your 20-year-old self, hey, it's time to get about that business life. Stand on business. That's what they saying now. You be standing on business. Okay, so now I have a couple more questions, and then we're going to we'll wrap this up. But what would you tell somebody right now who is on the verge of quitting?
I would tell them to look up the story of 3 Feet from Gold. So 3 Feet from Gold, it's a true story. It's this family, right? They own this mine, this gold mine, and they have it for countless of years, and they can't find the gold. It gets to the point where they're broke, they're in debt, and they have to sell everything off. And this gentleman, he's got this idea, hey, I'm gonna hire an engineer that can go in here and give me an estimate of where the gold is. So he hires this guy, and he's like, the gold is literally right there. They just gotta dig a little bit further. But they're already all broken up, and they're already selling the equipment. So he ends up buying the equipment, buying the mine, and not even 3 feet away, man, gold. If this family would have just stuck it out a little bit further or hired the right person, you need a mentor. You need somebody that's done it. He hired the engineer. The engineer's done a lot of that research and can predict where the gold is, because I think he took like a bunch of mines and he did some statistical analysis. He did something. But this guy that bought it all up, he literally didn't have to dig but 3 feet to find the gold.
So it was worth his investment, and the family that sold it wasn't committed enough to see the process through the end. So,
and I always tell people, 1,000-mile journey is done one step at a time.
Yes.
One step at a time.
Yes.
That's it.
One step at a time. So take heed to that, y'all. Like one step at a time. And what he's saying is, you are close to whatever your breakthrough is. You're 3 feet from it. You can always just be like, you know what? I'm gonna give up on it, and somebody else is gonna come in and say, "Oh, I'll take that. It's gonna cost me $2.50. Okay, great." So what? Don't quit, even though it may seem as if you're not as close to your outcome that you would want.
Have you ever heard of Jesse Itzler?
Jesse Itzler.
Jesse Itzler. Well, he has a saying, I didn't come this far to have only came this far.
Right. So my lovely bride just walked in, and she just stepped in, and she just pulled up on us to kind of see what we down here doing, and we just down here doing what we do. So here's my last question, and
But I'm having so much fun. Why is this gotta be the last?
It ain't gotta be. We can keep talking. But I'm glad that you said. I'm glad that you have fun. I'm glad. Really, I was kind of nervous for doing this whole podcast because it was my first like I've done podcasts visually, you know, like we both said, this is our first time.
This is my first time too.
So this is our
I've
first.
done a lot of Zoom.
Yeah, I done did a lot of
Zoom.
I've been on them and everything. I'm a staple in on one, but to actually have you in here, man, it's fun and it's a lot of energy. And so this don't have to be the last question, but I want to just throw this question out here, and I didn't add it in the sheet that I sent you because I want this question to kind of be something that's there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what is something that you didn't pay attention to early on that you had to learn the hard way?
Ooh. How to appreciate my mom and all that she did. She was a single mom, man. We came here from Mexico City when I was 9 years old, and we moved to a small town about 30 minutes north of here by the name of Scottsburg, Indiana. Do you know where that's at?
I do know where Scottsburg's at.
All right, so we moved to Scottsburg, just my mom and I, because my grandma met this guy in Chicago. His name was Joe. Anyways, so long story short, my grandma told my mom that, hey, come to Scottsburg and just come to visit, but there's a lot more opportunity here in Scottsburg. So we did. We were just moving to Scottsburg for we were taking a vacation, right?
A vacation.
We're gonna go there for 2-3 weeks and that's it. So my mom actually saw that there was more opportunity here in the United States than there was in Mexico City. So she decided that we would stay. The first 2 to 3 weeks of school, I didn't speak the language, and not one kid there spoke Spanish. I would get surrounded by all of the kids in my classroom, and they would all be just talking to me, talking. Because it was weird to them, because there has never been a minority person, let alone someone from another country,
For sure.
that didn't speak their language, and they were all just so surprised, right? So they start talking to me. They surround me every day, and the first sentence, I kid you not, that I learned to say is, "Me no speak English." That's all I would say for 2 to 3 weeks.
Wow.
So I remember writing my mom a letter in Spanish saying, "Mom, can we please go back to Mexico? All of the kids here, they surround me every day. I don't know what they're saying. Can we please go back?" And I commend my mom for saying, "No, we're going to stay here, and you're going to make a better life. You're gonna go to college. We're gonna stay here. We're gonna have a better life for ourselves." Back then, I hated her. But now that I see what she was doing all along, I love her for it. And it took me until I was maybe 27, 28 years old to actually appreciate her, because she's a strong woman. I didn't have a dad growing up. It was just my mom and I. She was a single mom for 14 years of her life. My dad left when I was 2 months old. But so she decides that we're going to stay here, and over the course of when I was 9 to just recently, man, we were illegal here. We didn't have any papers. I couldn't get my license. I was frustrated. At one point, I almost moved to China because we couldn't get our papers.
Mm-hmm.
It was only 3 years ago that we just got our papers. We became permanent residents.
Man, that's
Wow. And my mom just recently became a U.S. citizen.
Man, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. But I got to wait 2 more years to become a citizen. But yeah, so.
Unless you get married.
No, if I get married, it's actually worse.
Really?
I have to start the time over again. Because right now I'm under my dad's sponsorship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I get married, it's going to have to start over.
Oh,
Yeah, that's kind of why we don't have a date so far. But yeah, so yeah, back to your question. It was not appreciating what my mom was doing for me, because honestly, Maurice, up to 27, and I haven't told her this. This is the first time I've ever said it out loud. There was something in me that didn't think that she made the right choice for moving here. And it's because I didn't have my papers. I was frustrated. I thought this hobnob thing was all for nothing. I thought eventually I would get deported and lose it all.
Right.
But now that I'm a permanent resident, we spent 13 years and over $100,000 to get our papers. It takes that long.
Wow.
And she never gave up. Even when I was wanting to move to China, she said, honey, listen, we're so close, 3 feet from gold. We're so close.
Just endure to the end.
Mm-hmm.
Just endure.
And I stuck it out, and I'm glad I did, because I was 3 feet from gold. Whenever I was going to move to China, we literally got a notice that said, you're approved for your interview. Come on in, and we're going to get this moving forward.
So you need to call your moms. You need to go hug on her and love on her, and tell her that. I think that's awesome. I think that is so awesome. And to kind of sum up everything that we talked about today, so if we start from this story all the way up to where you are now, God had always been preparing you to be able to persevere and endure.
Mm-hmm.
So you started off coming in not speaking the language, I've been to Scottsburg. I don't go into Scottsburg when the sun goes down.
Yeah.
And the only time we did was when my son was playing basketball, and we would go up there. But we in and off on the highway, and we gone, because it was and kind of still is a sundown town.
Yeah.
And so your plight from overcoming all the obstacles, hurdles, the bullying. We didn't even talk about all that. I already know how Scottsburg is, right? And I already know how kids are.
Mm-hmm.
And so the alienation, to be able to break out, to be able to come through all that, go off to college, get an education, and start to fulfill part of your mom's vision without knowing that you was fulfilling her vision for your life. You get out here, you get successful, being an amazing woman, you're being an amazing dad, you've overcome hurdles, you've been on the deathbed, you've been face to face and in a conversation with God, which at the end of the day, the only thing that really matters is that relationship. Mm-hmm. And now you are a successful entrepreneur, businessman, community involvement person, and stand-up dude in the community, and I commend you for that, man. That's dope, and I'm glad that we had that your fiance threw an amazing event, that we were able to meet and connect, and that the relationship that we're forming is a great relationship and bond, man. And I respect you for that, and I appreciate you showing up on the Open for Discussion podcast. Well, you got anything else you want to say before we tap out of this thing?
Yeah, I'll never forget the first time I saw you, man. It was at her event. You were over there dancing with all the girls, super excited. And
my wife was there too. She was in there. She was watching.
But it was like, it's 95% women, right? Because it's a women empowerment group.
For sure.
The Beauty Boost, and that's what they focus on, is empowering business owners that are women to be leaders and do better in life. But you were out there with all the women and just dancing. I was like, I didn't know him.
And what's your event planning? So I can. What's your fiance?
Oh, it's called the Beauty Boost.
The Beauty Boost in
Louisville, Kentucky. Yeah.
Okay.
Beauty Boost Louisville.
And is there a Facebook page for it?
Yes, there is.
What's the Facebook page?
What is it?
It's the same.
It's the same. Beauty Boost Louisville.
What is it?
Beauty Boost.
Beauty Boost Louisville on Facebook. Look her up. She's an amazing content creator. She's an amazing event planner. And go check her out. Go follow her stuff. Go like all her content and stuff like that.
They're big on Instagram too, so.
Oh, so what's the Instagram? The same?
Yeah, same.
Beauty
Boost
Louisville.
Uh-huh.
On IG. Follow her on IG. Follow on Facebook. Reach out to her so she can do your dope event, and you can stay locked into some things that she has coming up, some of the women empowerment stuff. I think that is so dope. That's why we got to get her on here, and she can talk about the women empowerment stuff and the what prompted her to do that and things like that. But go follow her, and here we go. We're gonna go
Actually,
to.
you know what, Maurice? I want to give a big shout out to my Hobnob team.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. So my property manager, her name is Jessie Rogers. She's been excellent.
Shout out to Jessie.
Yeah, shout out to Jessie. Without her, Hobnob wouldn't be where it was at because I was doing things a lot differently. I wasn't furnishing the rooms. I didn't have an eye for like the decor and all that stuff. She has been an amazing person.
And I looked at your website and looked at some of the rooms, and I was like, oh man, this person's creative. And I actually thought it was your fiance.
It's both of them.
I was like,
it's
man,
mainly Jessie, but then Fran goes and
the creative side of this is amazing. So yeah, like your team. Shout out to Jess.
Yeah,
who else we shout out?
Stephanie,
shout out to Ma Dukes. For real,
Mom, even
dad,
even dad,
pops,
stepdad, but he's a dad. Yeah, he's a dad.
He
my biological dad left me, but
he filled in, so he is technically. That's a whole other story. Shaq had a song. He said, "With my biological didn't bother." You know what I'm saying? So it's an old school song, but we're gonna give a shout out to moms. We're gonna give a shout out to pops. Give a shout out to Jess. Anybody else we shout out?
Stephanie, she's in charge of our cleaning crew. My fiance, she's in charge of our marketing.
Oh yeah, and we definitely gonna give her a shout out. Yeah. They say, you have peace at home, you have peace at home. Mm-hmm. And I ain't gonna get to the details because if you have the PEACE, you have the PIECE. But that's a whole other story for a whole other day. So we have been talking with the CEO of Hobnob, and he shared his story, and it was a good conversation, and I appreciate him pulling up and coming and hanging out and doing this thing live. It was a great show, and so with that being said, follow your dreams, follow your passions, and follow God. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
And never give up.
And never give up, ever. And we out this piece. Here we go. Peace.
All right.
That's what's up.
My man.